The greatest era in Formula 1 history is the 1980s. This isn't me just telling you this, by the way. I wasn't even alive at this point. This was based on a poll that I found on autosports.com. When I saw that the majority of fans across the board voted for this time period, I sat there and wondered why. So I spent some time looking at race highlights, reading articles and watching other videos to find out why Formula 1 seems to have peaked during the 1980s. Welcome to Trackside Tales, where I share stories that have shaped motorsports. Today we learn why the turbo-powered era was probably the best time in its 75-year history to be a Formula 1 fan. Now I want to quickly do a visual experiment with you guys. Imagine jumping into a car so powerful that any mistake might not just cost you the race, but your entire life. Now picture 19 other cars exactly like that lining up on the grid alongside you. Not only that, but these cars are being driven by drivers who would all go on to become Formula 1 legends. I'm genuinely not kidding here. Imagine having Schumacher, Hamilton, Verstappen, Alonso, Vettel and Raikkonen all racing each other in their primes for championship glory. This is the level of power and skill that Formula 1 fans got to enjoy between the year 1983 and 1993. Also, did I mention that this was also a time period in Formula 1 where engineering breakthroughs were pretty much happening all the time? I've only just began to paint the picture as to why this era of Formula 1 is seen as the golden era. So let's dive deeper and find out more. Nelson Piquet's Drivers' Championship in the 1983 season represented the sport's first turbocharged title. The Brabham-BMW partnership delivered astonishing power, frequently surpassing over 800 horsepower during the race day and pushing beyond 1,000 brake horsepower during qualifying trim. Although Renault had introduced the turbo concept years earlier, BMW's engineering breakthrough showcased turbos at their full potential. Piquet harnessed this ferocious power with strategic racecraft, often using his intellect to manage fuel, tyres and the turbo boost in a fine balance. However, 1983 wasn't just about Nelson Piquet. Alain Prost led much of the championship battle with Renault, only losing out late in the season. This disappointed Prost, who had placed 4th in the 1982 season behind John Watson, Didier Pironi and Keke Rosberg. With the growing reliability of turbo engines alongside innovative setups such as water-cooled brakes and improved intercoolers made the 1983 season a development arms race. Teams like Ferrari, McLaren and Renault were all pushing their own turbo programs, though reliability varied between the teams of course. While some drivers reported incredible speeds, others complained about lag spikes that would have caused sudden bursts of power at the apex. Fans found this unpredictability exhilarating, not to mention that the next year would see Formula 1's closest championship rivalry in history, with Niki Lauda beating Alain Prost by half a point. Imagine having a 2021 type season twice in a row. The spectacle of flame-spitting exhaust during qualifying and the occasional turbo failures gave each session a sense of tension. Meanwhile, with FIA fuel restrictions attempting to contain horsepowers, forcing teams to optimize for engine mapping rather than simply chasing raw boosts. The seeds of a fascinating era had been planted, one where brute force and technical ingenuity would battle for Formula 1 supremacy. By the mid-1980s, aerodynamics and mechanical innovations complemented turbo revolution. Ground effect skirts had been fully banned by 1982, yet teams continued to refine on-the-body aerodynamics. Brabham, for instance, experimented with clever packaging to maximize downforce without violating skirt regulations. However, Williams, McLaren and Lotus each pursued unique chassis designs, seeking advantage in airflow management. Active suspensions became a major focus for teams, especially for Williams. Engineers such as Patrick Head and Adrian Newey recognized the benefits of maintaining a consistent ride height. Sensors adjusted suspension geometry in real time, keeping the car stable and preserving aerodynamic efficiency over bumps and underbraking. This technology gave drivers such as Nigel Mansell a significant edge over others, though it would also introduce new layers of complexity. Mechanics had to deal with additional electronics, hydraulics, and even data systems. Meanwhile, the turbo battle would continue to intensify until 1988, when the FIA mandated the end of turbos for the 89 season. To soften the transition between the 88 and 89 season, engines were restricted to 2.5 bars of boost, down from the earlier peaks of 4 bars in qualifying modes previously. Teams began working on naturally aspirated or NA engines to prepare for the post-turbo future. Ferrari led the way in 1989 with a pioneering semi-automatic gearbox, while Honda continued producing formidable V10 and V12 NA units for the McLaren. Some teams would even start testing electronic aids like traction control, for example, although the technology back then wasn't as refined as it is, say, in today's GT3 cars. The sheer amount of variety of technology on the grid meant that each race had a distinctive storyline. One weekend, a team might find a golden suspension setting that delivered peak performance. The next, an engine manufacturer might unlock more horsepower and dominate the race. This ongoing innovation cycle contributed to the era's thrilling unpredictability. Already a champion in 1981, Nelson Piquet utilized his pragmatic approach to thrive during the turbo era. He balanced aggression with mechanical sympathy, a key trait when engines were prone to grenading over stress at the time. Keke Rosberg, the 1982 champion, displayed remarkable car control and contributed memorable qualifying laps, including the first 160-mile-per-hour lap at Silverstone in 1985. Nigel Mansell, on the other hand, would emerge as one of the fan favourites, especially amongst the British crowd. His intense driving style led to numerous high-drama races. He was a determined driver, sometimes even to the point of stubbornness, and delivered sensational moments like his pass on Gerhard Berger in 1990 at the Mexico Grand Prix, going wheel-to-wheel around the outside. However, for most people, Nigel Mansell's crowning achievement would come in 1992, when he would pilot the active suspension of the FW14B to 9 race victories, setting a then record for the most wins in a single season. Next up, we have arguably Formula One's greatest teammate rivalry, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna. Prost was a man who adopted a cerebral approach to driving, fine-tuning car setups and managing races with precision. Ayrton Senna, on the other hand, personified raw speed and intensity. Their rivalry at McLaren would produce one of the most epic seasons of all time in 1988, where they both won 15 of the 16 races, and that would lead to two of the most controversial crashes in Formula One history, both happening at Suzuka in the subsequent years of 89 and 1990. Prost's smooth style contrasts Senna's uncompromising aggression, and their disagreements often boiled over, capturing headlines worldwide. Their rivalry continued when Prost moved over to Ferrari in 1990 and Senna remained at McLaren, intensifying a personal battle that transcended team rivalries. Gerhard Berger brought a sense of speed and camaraderie to the paddock. He raced alongside Senna at McLaren and also partnered with Prost at Ferrari, offering unique insights into both legends' approach to the sport. Other notable drivers included Michele Alboreto, Elio De Angelis, and Thierry Boutsen, who all scored significant results during this era. Even though these drivers had moments of brilliance that was often overshadowed by the bigger names, this was still a part of the fabric that made racing in this era so fiercely competitive. The deep grid talent combined with teams, shifting alliances, and engine partnerships contributed to a dynamic environment. Drivers had to adapt constantly as new car innovations emerged, forging careers filled with highlight reels. So to start off with unforgettable seasons and moments, we move to 1984. Why? Because this featured the closest championship rival in Formula One history, with Niki Lauda securing his third championship by half a point over Alain Prost. This season showcased McLaren's emerging strength and highlighted Niki Lauda's exceptional race management. Prost had been the favourite to win, but suffered some reliability issues and marginal defeats. Meanwhile, with Lauda's methodical point scoring, this ensured that he edged out his teammate in the final round at Portugal. Now, I did mention this one previously just a little bit, but let's talk about it a little bit more. We have 89 and 1990. This was because Suzuka became the epicenter of controversy. In 1989, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna collided at the chicane, with Prost retiring on the spot. Senna would continue only to be disqualified for rejoining illegally, handing Prost the title. However, 1 year later, Senna would take his revenge at the first corner of the Japanese Grand Prix, colliding with Prost, who was now at Ferrari, effectively deciding the championship in Senna's favour. These moments remain as the most talked about incidences in Formula One history. They also shaped the FIA's approach to policing driver conduct. Moving on into the 90s now, we have 1992, with Nigel Mansell finally being able to claim his long-awaited title in commanding fashion. The Williams FW14B's active suspension gave him a significant performance edge over everyone else, particularly through corners and over bumps. Mansell would dominate the 1992 season from day one, achieving 9 wins throughout the season and sealing the championship earlier than anyone had done before at the Hungarian Grand Prix. This season is often cited as proof that the advanced technology and skilled driver can create an almost unbeatable package, just like Max Verstappen in 2023 for example. And then we move on to the next and final year of this era, 1993, where Alan Prost returned from his sabbatical and joined Williams, partnering with Damon Hill. Prost would win 7 races through this season, securing his 4th title before retiring at the end. Ayrton Senna, driving a Ford-powered McLaren, delivered one of his most iconic performances at Donington Park during the European Grand Prix. On a wet track, Senna overtook 4 rivals on the opening lap, frequently hailed as one of the single greatest laps in Formula 1 history. This season wrapped up a decade of epic battles, setting the stage for major shifts in technology and driver rosters moving forward. Turbo engines officially disappeared after the 1988 season. The FIA introduced a new 3.5-litre naturally aspirated formula in 1989, aiming to reduce power outputs and improve safety. At the same time, costs for turbo development had soared, straining smaller teams and engine suppliers. While some fans missed the visceral spectacle of qualifying specials that could exceed 1,200 horsepower, others appreciated the mechanical reliability and smoother power delivery of naturally aspirated engines. Active suspensions, traction control, and semi-automatic gearboxes further changed the driving experience. In essence, the end of the turbo era signaled a broader shift in how F1 balanced innovation, cost control, and driver's skill. By the time that 1993 came around, the cars looked radically different from their earlier 80s ancestors. Many factors went into making the time stretch between 1983 and 1993 unforgettable in Formula 1. You had roaring turbos, innovative chassis designs, active suspensions, and a cast of drivers whose every rivalry played out on a global stage. The end of 1993 brought regulation shifts that paved the way to a new generation of Formula 1 technology. Yet enthusiasts still return to that decade for stories of monumental power, daring overtakes, and raw ambition. Now, I'd love to hear from you guys. If you watched Formula 1 during this time, let me know what made this era special to you. If you want to check out the FW14Bs and the McLaren's MP4/4 battle out with modern Formula 1 cars for the title of most dominant, then check out my video where I calculated the most dominant car in Formula 1 history. Or if you'd like to check out some extra stories from this era of Formula 1, then check out how Niki Lauda's crash and Keke Rosberg's single win championship changed Formula 1 forever.